So it's time to rebuild the New York Knicks, and we're going to need Porzingis to become an elite player for us to do that. However, the rest of the team is pretty interesting if you ask me. You got Frank Ntilikina, who could end up being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Tim Hardaway Jr., who can put up some points and is in a similar mold to Jamal Crawford, I would say. We have Kevin Knox, who to me is a wing player that you would love to have in the modern NBA because he's got size, shows some signs as a shooter, can go off the dribble and make some things happen. And then we've also got a couple of maybes with Mitchell Robinson at the center position, and then there is Mario Hezonja, who the Knicks are taking a chance on after his years in Orlando did not go so well. As for a couple of our veterans, one of them being Enes Kanter, and the other one a wing player in Courtney Lee, I mean, they're okay at the moment, but I don't know if they're going to be on this team long term. Here's the rotation for you. A lot of similar minutes throughout, except for Porzingis, who's going to be playing a bit more, which I think makes sense given the talent discrepancy. We do have to do one thing first, though, and that is get Joakim Noah's money off the books. And while 2K doesn't exactly make this known, you technically can buy out guys when you release them to free agency. It splits their salary up over a few seasons and it gives you a break on the money. So we'll look at that in a second, but we have to see how this team does right away. Not too hot in the first month, actually under 500 pretty considerably. So what's going on? Well, the Zing God is doing his thing, and it seems that we're not able to generate enough offense outside of him. I mean, not too surprising. I guess I could have expected Tim Hardaway Jr. to put up a few more points, but whatever, it's not too shocking. What might be a little surprising is that Frank can't make any shoddy attempts right now. 6 points a game, 34% from the field, that's pretty rough. So we're going to need him to just get better at that. Kevin Knox, his percentages aren't amazing, but I'm okay with it given that the dude's a rookie and he does more than just simply score. I mean, he can grab some rebounds, play some defense, make some plays for others. Hezonja's three-point shot isn't doing too well. That's a little more alarming just because he's farther along into his NBA career, and if he's not able to make outside jumpers, then that's going to be rough because he's not too great at creating for himself. As you'll see here, Joakim Noah's money, now it's $6 million a season until 2021, so that'll make our free agency desires a little better, I guess. Who knows who would actually be willing to sign with us, given that, you know, this season isn't exactly going too well, but it's nice to have the money to play with, right? So, as the simulation goes, we have some ups, we have some downs, there's some winning streaks in there, there are some losing streaks. But as we get to the trade deadline, you will see that we're really not doing that great. So I figured, why not just check the rumors, see what's going on, see if we can acquire anyone. CJ McCollum is in trade rumors. That's interesting. He's already willing to go on the open market. I don't know if that really matters, but I think what does matter is that Portland is playing pretty poorly. They're not in the playoff race, and hey, you know, maybe they think just trading one of their stars away and getting some stuff would be the right move. I don't know. So, what would it take for us to acquire CJ McCollum? We definitely need some offense. And you could argue that him and Tim Hardaway Jr. are a little redundant, but I don't think it would be that bad. I think you can surround those two with defense and all that to where it'll work. So, let's just see what it would take to actually get this guy. Well, I don't want to give him a top 3 protected pick. I'm not giving up Frank, definitely not giving up Porzingis, but this here is interesting. Enes Kanter, a 2020 first and a second rounder. Now I am going to place a protection on that first because in case this becomes a disaster, I don't want us to walk away with nothing. So I want to put a lottery protection on that. So if we end up being a bad team in a couple years, then we still get our first round pick. I also want to give them Lance Thomas because, you know, we can get his money off the books. He's still on for 2 more seasons. And we offer that, and they're not okay with that. Okay, so we have to adjust this a little bit more. I'm not giving up on that lottery-protected pick, though. Would this be enough? No, but they're actually willing to negotiate here. Then I start to look at it, so we would lose 2 seconds. The protected pick is still there. Ron Baker, which, I mean, that's fine, whatever. Enes Kanter, they can get off of his money in one season. There you go. We have CJ McCollum. That's just one of those, you trade the guy for 75 cents on the dollar. I have to assume they could have gotten some sort of a better deal for him, but whatever, we jumped on it, and I hope that Seth Curry can be decent for us off the bench. I don't know if we're going to keep him on long term, and we have to do one other little thing because we just traded away our starting center. We're going to sign Andrew Bogut for the rest of the season. Him and Mitchell Robinson can have a center by committee thing. But the big takeaway of this is, of course, CJ McCollum is now a New York Knick. What's so good about CJ is his versatility on offense, where you can have him in isolations and he can take guys in one-on-ones, you can put him in pick and rolls, but you can also move him off the ball because he's really crafty and he can kind of make a shot from anywhere on the floor. And so you have him and Porzingis. These are two guys now who could probably put up over 20 points a game. I mean, I know Porzingis can. I'm going to assume that CJ can. We have a few more guys who like to shoot than the Blazers do. But even so, I expect him to be putting up some decent production for us. So let's see how the team reacts now to this move. The team chemistry does drop, which I do think hurts us a bit, because the actual wins and losses not really that great. In fact, you could argue that we are just as bad or maybe a teeny bit worse just because we were showing some life before we actually traded for CJ. So, not exactly the response that you would want, It seems like if we're going to win games with CJ and Porzingis, it's probably going to happen next season with, the team chemistry getting a chance to improve and all that. But in terms of the point totals, CJ is definitely doing what we're asking of him. 21 points, 5 assists. Seth Curry's putting up a solid 12 off the bench. But for whatever reason, it's just not happening. As we see towards the end, just not that good. We do not make a playoff appearance. The NBA Finals, it seems that the Celtics win it over the Thunder. I don't know why the Warriors didn't get in there, but okay. Don't forget about the draft lottery, where we have the third highest odds of the number 1 overall pick. And you will see two things. Number 1, we got the 4th pick. Number 2, the Lakers and Celtics got 1 and 2, so that's not going to help the NBA's cheating rumors. Let's get some of these guys off the books. Moutier. I'm considering keeping Hazonia. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. Seth Curry's gone. Trey Burke is gone. But the thing that you'll notice as we eventually get to free agency here is that even with some of these guys off the books, we don't really have all the money to play with, and you'll see what I mean in a second. But first, we have to talk about who we're actually going to select. I thought about Bol for a second, just because we need a 5 next to Porzingis, but then I said, let's not overthink this. Get the best player available. That would be Cameron Reddish, who is a big guard who's pretty damn talented. He can do some things with the ball in his hand. He's also shown signs of being a good defender, good rebounder, good passer. The only question with him is where is that jump shot, because everything else is pretty legit. So he's going to join our wing rotation, which is getting pretty steep now. But the only things we could really do is sign Dwayne Dedmon to take over the center spot, because we had to match any offer that we got for Porzingis, so we couldn't go too crazy in free agency. But you'll see that we actually will have a decent amount of money to play with, just because like Courtney Lee and Lance Thomas's money will be coming off the books. And Porzingis doesn't have a max contract because whoever offered him a deal didn't offer him a max, so that helped us out. Kevin Knox will be starting. Cameron Reddish will be coming off the bench, still playing high minutes. I like I said, the wing rotation we have now between CJ and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee still plays a little bit, and Kevin Knox and Cameron Reddish. I like Dwayne Dedmon at the center position to just be an athlete who knows what he's doing on both sides of the floor. I think we have potential to improve on last season, which was not good at all. Apparently, to get footage for this series, I'm always playing the Pistons in Detroit. I don't know why that's happening, but it is what it is. So how's the first month going to go this time around? 2-1 right now. Beat the Pacers, even have a win against Houston, who I think are still pretty good. And before you know it, after 1 month, what does that say in the little corner? It says 13 and something, I can't see it, but we are comfortably over 500 at the moment. Cameron Reddish, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 10 points a game. I like what he's doing. He's a versatile player who can just do a whole lot of everything for us. And hopefully he's not upset that he's coming off the bench. I mean, he's playing as many minutes as most of our starters, so I think it's cool. And it seems that the impact that CJ can make next to Porzingis is being felt a lot more now that we have a fresh season rather than acquiring him mid-year and then everybody has to adjust, right? So you got those two, him and Porzingis, putting up points. You got a versatile team around them. I'd say we can just keep on keeping on. Now, what happens after that initial month is we fall back down to earth a bit, which I think makes sense because we are a still pretty young team here. I mean, we got a rookie, we got a second-year guy starting. Ntilikina's in, his 3rd or 4th year at this point. Like, we shouldn't be setting the world on fire, but even then, we are still playing pretty okay, which, that's some real progress. I mean, after that first season of however many wins, 20-something, pretty good. Now, hopefully we can just make the postseason. That's what we do. We actually win 50 games, which I think was probably about 5 or 6 more than I would have expected us to win, but I don't know. Steph Curry wins MVP every single year in 2K19. So round 1, we've got the Boston Celtics. I don't think they have Kyrie Irving because he goes to the Hawks every single year in free agency whenever I do this, so they don't have him, but they're still a pretty damn good team, and they got Brad Stevens as a coach, so I expect this to be a challenge, but you could argue that we have at least the best player in this series, depending on what's happened with Jason Tatum or whatever. Game 1 goes to the Knicks. Game 2 goes to us. It's looking pretty good so far, but it seems that Boston was able to even the series up, and then eventually they will beat us in 6 games, so not the worst thing in the world, ultimately. Like, yeah, maybe we could have won this series, but to at least be a decent team, I think is some progress. They have Zion Williamson, which they got with that second pick. Not doing too much for that next offseason, because I think we just have a pretty solid team here. Also, Tim Hardaway Jr. accepting his player option didn't give us too many things to do in free agency, but I think for this season now, we could do some things, because now you got Cameron Reddish in his 2nd season, and you could argue that him improving is more valuable than any like mid-tier free agent that we could sign. Still have Porzingis and CJ, and pretty much everybody's going to be a year better, right? So we just have this tall, versatile team full of ball handlers, shooters, some solid defenders throughout. Similar to the Lakers rebuild, trying to be a team that just fits in with the modern-day NBA full of wing players and switchability and all that stuff. And what is that, 16-3, 17-3 or whatever? 19-4, I think it says, if I can read. We finished this season only 3 games better than previously, 53-29. Right back into the postseason. We're not going to waste too much time with the simulation and all that. We've got the Bulls in round 1. See, this time around, we are the 2nd seed, so if anything, the Eastern Conference around us was worse. And I'd like to believe we were still a little better overall, even if the win total might not reflect that. We should beat these guys with not too much of a problem. They do have Isaiah Thomas now, which I don't know what that means, but they have Isaiah Thomas, so good for him. 5 games, and we almost faced the Celtics, but we actually are going to face the Brooklyn Nets in round 2. See, if this happens in real life at some point, that's going to be a huge deal in New York, where you got the Knicks and Queens and the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets have fans in Brooklyn, right? That's one of the things I always thought, is like, if you were living in Brooklyn, wouldn't you have just been a Knicks fan already? I don't know, but hopefully that series will be pretty exciting in the city. So, who's going to win this thing? I think Porzingis is probably going to be the deciding factor here, because I don't know if they have a top-tier player like that. They at least win 1 game on us, so that's good. But we're in the Eastern Conference Finals, facing the Toronto Raptors, the 1 seed. We do not have home court advantage. I would expect that we would not be the favorites in this, because, well, number 1, they just won more games than us, so that's natural. But also, they've got the best player in this series now in Kawhi Leonard. Funny thing is, 2K has Kawhi re-signing with Toronto whenever you do a MyLeague simulation. Perhaps that will put some cosmic energy in the air, and that'll happen in real life, who knows. Kyle Lowry is still hanging on. making threes out of the pick and roll and playing defense. So, I expect us to lose this series, but you never really know with 2K. Game 1 to Toronto, but then after that, it seems we get some momentum going, and we actually win it in 5 games. This was so weird, I had to actually go check the simulator thing to make sure, like, it wasn't down or something. It's at 50. I would think that means that Toronto would win, because they should be the better team, but here we are against Golden State. Every one of their guys are over 80, and they've got some new dude at power forward, Hunter, who's pretty good, I guess. Draymond's playing full-time at center, so death lineup right out of the jump. Definitely have the deck stacked against us here. I mean, if this happened in real life, I think the Warriors would win this in probably like 5 games, 6 at the very most. However, like I've said many times in these things, 2K's simulation doesn't make much sense, and we've seen that just weird things happen, you know? So, if you get a heroic performance from Porzingis and our defense is amazing and all the switchability and Dwayne Dedmon means something, then perhaps we would actually have a chance in this thing. Game 1 goes to us. How the hell did that happen? Steph Curry went nuts, but we still managed to win it. Game 2 also to us, so we win both games in Golden State after Steph puts up 50 points. Is his shot tendency at like 100 in this game? The dude just like drops abnormal point totals every time I see the guy. 3-0 Knicks. This officially doesn't make any sense. However, in true 2K fashion, you will see that the tide immediately gets flipped as we win Game 4 in New York. Game 5, the Warriors would win that one. Game 5 goes to them. Game 6 in New York, Golden State just destroys us, as you'll see in a moment. That's a pretty hefty blowout. It's so big that I can't even really fathom how many points it is off the top of my head. But then Game 7, we win. What the hell just happened? 2K has outdone itself with its simulation. I figured we were just gonna lose like outright, and then, well, that's what you get. Apparently Raul Neto was on the team at some point, I don't know. Porzingis is gonna accept his ring, and this time around I didn't actually show the holding of the trophy because I didn't want the glitch with the whole podium still being there when he shakes Adam Silver's hand. Although the moment was kind of ruined because Porzingis' hand didn't actually touch Adam Silver's at all. Shout out to New York. And I'm just gonna stop talking as the banner goes up.